Hello everyone and welcome back. My name's Dustinkreis and today we're going to do a movie review and we're going to talk about the adaptation of this book right here, The Great Gatsby. And I did a video a while back about my favorite books of all time, and number one with a bullet was this book right here. So when I started seeing that they were doing a film adaptation of it, I got immediately excited because I just wanted to see how it would be interpreted by somebody else. And then I read that it was Baz Luhrmann who was doing the interpretation. And a lot of people got really upset when they saw Baz Luhrmann was doing the adaptation of Great Gatsby. And I never understood it because seeing a movie like Romeo and Juliet and Moulin Rouge, I knew that Baz Luhrmann would be perfect to capture the spectacle of the novel. What worried me was the quiet introspection of the novel. And I have to say that I am thoroughly impressed with this adaptation of The Great Gatsby. Now, if you go out and read a lot of the reviews, like I even read a review that said that this is a movie to skip this summer. And I can't, I can't disagree with that more. I think that this was fantastic. It has its flaws. There are flaws to this adaptation of The Great Gatsby. But I think that as far as a film adaptation is going to go of this the story, we really can't ask for anything more. It's a hard book to adapt to film. A lot of it is subtextual. The green light at the end of the dock is only really mentioned a couple times in the book, and really not a lot of emphasis is placed on it. Basically, Nick Carraway talks about it once when he sees Gatsby staring at it, from his dock across the bay. And then, it comes in play at the end where Carraway's again talking about Gatsby believing in the green light. But the movie places a lot more emphasis on it. So in a way, the movie kind of sledgehammers the themes of the book. And maybe it's not handled in such a subtle and spectacular way as the novel could. But with film, it can't. It's just like a lot of the criticisms against the movie is that it lacks the substance. It has the style and the flash and the flair, but it lacks the substance of the book. And a lot of the substance of the book comes from Fitzgerald's descriptions of the scenes. Film is a visual medium. You can't, it's not like you can pull out a paragraph of the book where he's describing a scene and put it on the screen with the same emphasis. There's a difference between reading the written word and seeing it play out on a screen. The same thing kind of goes for the Harry Potter movies or Lord of the Rings. Beautiful films to look at, but when you read the books, it's a completely different experience. And I feel like with Gatsby, like every movie reviewer wants to have that experience of reading the book. It's a different medium, okay? I don't know, just the feel of the book is not going to come through in the film. It's a different entity. So going into the film, I approached it as a film. And I think as a film, it delivers the story. It's a much more romantic and sympathetic interpretation of the story than the book really allows. But I think you need that to sell Gatsby to a movie-going audience. Because when you read the book, a lot of people are going to sit there and think, none of these characters are really likable. They're not really relatable. Maybe Nick is relatable in certain ways, but certainly not Tom. Certainly not Gatsby. Jordan, she's just a snoot. There's no two ways about it. And Daisy is so aloof that it's just, there's not really a great character to latch onto in this book. So in some ways, the more romanticized, sympathetic version that Baz Luhrmann is presenting us with this movie is what it needs for us to engage it as a film. Um, as a book, it's fine. You can have despicable, not likable characters. But for some reason, with the medium of film, you have to have somebody to kind of latch onto. And I really think that by, how do I want to put this? Really the character that gets softened the most in this is Daisy. And I think that that is key to drawing an audience in. Because I feel like in the book, in a lot of ways, you're reading Daisy and you're like, why is Gatsby so enamored with this girl? I mean, she's very shallow, doesn't really have a lot of great thoughts in her head. But for some reason, Carey Mulligan's performance really brought out a different side of Daisy that I didn't see before. And, it almost makes the character, like, you almost feel like you could fall in love with Daisy. And I think that's very important to the story, to feel like, Daisy is not only an object of Gatsby's affection, but an object of your affection as well as the audience member. Now, this might not work for, like, the female-going audience, of course, but as a male who has read the story several times, I've read this book 4 times since high school, and this was the first time that I really felt like Daisy was worth fighting for. Okay? Gatsby, I feel like with Gatsby, they really did the character justice. Very much true to the book. And I know a lot of people got kind of uppity about Leonardo DiCaprio playing him. To me, I will never be able to see another person as Jay Gatsby ever again, because I think he utterly nailed it. And there's not really much more to say, because I don't want to ruin, sort of the story of Gatsby, or your enjoyment of Leonardo DiCaprio's performance, or your hatred of it. Who knows when you go and see it. But, yeah. I feel like this is getting away from me a little bit, because I love this story so much that I don't really know where to go with this discussion about the movie. I think Baz Luhrmann captured the hecticness and the energy of 1920s, the Roaring Twenties, as they're called, pitch perfectly. Trust me, I've seen a lot of party scenes in movies, and nothing comes close to approaching Gatsby's party. It's just, this is an explosion, of a film. And if you've seen a Baz Luhrmann film before, you know what you're getting into when it comes to that. The use of hip-hop music has for some reason become a very contentious part of this movie. I don't know what people want from this, because I feel like what people in the reviews and what people are saying, they want a very strict adaptation of the book. Well, go watch the Robert Redford version of the movie, adaptation, and you'll be bored to tears. I think Baz Luhrmann made a very brave and very smart decision by updating the music with urban hip-hop, because rap music of nowadays was the jazz music of that era. Jazz music then was looked upon as an African-American, fad. It was just something that, people were kind of caught on to it, and people were expecting to just, die off really quick. A lot like people think of rap music. So I think that using Jay-Z as the, I don't know if he's technically the scorer of the film, or just the music producer of the film, but using him, I think, was a brave and very smart decision, because it instantly draws the modern day audience in a way that if they played a bunch of jazz standards from that era, wouldn't have done. Even shows like Boardwalk Empire use modern day songs, you know. So I don't understand what the ruckus is about this. I mean, I know this is a very important book to a lot of people. It's very important to me as well. I kind of getting a little personal. There's a lot of myself that I see in Gatsby. Not so much the rags to riches story, but just the way he becomes so obsessed with Daisy, and essentially Daisy is his reason for being, his reason for existence. And in my early 20s, there was a girl that I felt that way very strongly about, and a lot like this book. It didn't turn out well. So whenever I read The Great Gatsby, I always get a very big sense of sadness, because I empathize a lot with Gatsby and sort of his loyalty and dedication to this dream, this, you know, figment of his imagination. Because even though he's in love with a real person, the person he's actually in love with doesn't exist. It's this creation in his own mind. And I think in a lot of ways, all of us do that. We all have a green light, something that is reality tangible. You know what I mean? It's real. In the real world, we can touch it, we can talk to it, we can interact with it. But it's become so built up in our own minds that it becomes more than the person. And you know, in a lot of ways, like Daisy could not live up to Gatsby's fantasy, and the girl with me could not live up to the fantasy that I created, and everything just kind of, you know, crumbles. So I just sat there in the theater and was just enamored with this film. It's gorgeous to look at. It's filled with Baz Luhrmann's kinetic energy. You know, say what you want to about Baz Luhrmann. His films are always energetic. I remember just being dazzled by Moulin Rouge. And it's one of those films I put in, and I'm just still like, holy shit, I can't believe that something like this was actually made. And the same kind of goes for Gatsby. I was really worried that he was not going to be able to handle the quieter, sadder moments of the film, or of the book. And I think it comes through in spades. I think you'll get a lot more out of the movie if you've read the book and understand the book. Because, like I said, a lot of the subtextual things, you know, the criticisms of the rich, and just the criticisms of the era of Prohibition, the hypocrisy of Prohibition. I mean, it all comes through in the film. But I think it really is a film that what you bring to it enhances it so much. Because if you're going into Gatsby, and this is your first experience with Gatsby, you're going to get swept up in the grandeur of it. But I think in a lot of ways you're going to miss out on a lot of the messages that Fitzgerald kind of hid underneath of it. And because it is kind of a pulpy, kind of trashy love story. But there's more to it kind of hidden in the backgrounds. I always talk, whenever I talk about films, I always like to talk about what's going on in the backgrounds. Like with Wes Anderson films. Watch a Wes Anderson film and pay attention to the background sometimes. There's always something crazy going on in the backgrounds. Just little details that you'll never know. And that's the thing with Gatsby. Like when you read the story, it sounds like this romantic, love-obsessed story. And then you start looking into the backgrounds and you realize, oh, holy shit, he's fucking burning everything down of his era. You know, the jazz age. He's taking it to task and saying, this is fucked up. And in the film, it is there. But if you don't go into it with that mindset, I mean, you are going to get caught up in the glitz and the glamour of a Baz Luhrmann film. And you're going to kind of miss out on it. But, you know, for the readers of the book, the only thing I really kind of had an issue with was putting Nick, the story in the book is told as a flashback as well, sort of Nick Carraway telling his own story, but putting him in sort of a sanitarium just seems kind of like, oh, right, yeah, he's depressed because Gatsby, you know, blah, 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 blah. But, yeah, that's really the only criticism I had of it. You know, as a lover of The Great Gatsby. I love this film, and I can't wait to get the Blu-ray and see it again. And I hope they pack it with a bunch of bonus features. I mean, yes, the CG shots kind of go, not CG like as in like Star Wars or something like that, but just like the CG camera movements and things like that. Does get to be a little bit much. The camera does kind of move a little bit too much, but you're not going to see a more alive adaptation of The Great Gatsby. Yeah, maybe the Redford movie or the miniseries with Paul Rudd and Mina Sorvino. Maybe those adhere closer to the book, but in some ways, like especially the Redford movie, it's so removed and detached. It's like you just watch it and you're like, this is what the Jazz Age was about. And no, Baz Luhrmann's film, he caught it, man. Sex, liquor, inhibitions, all of it. It's there. So my advice to you is to not listen to the reviews out there. I don't know what these reviewers are wanting from this film. One, because it's a Baz Luhrmann film. You know it's going to be spectacle. Two, if it strictly adhered to the book, it would be a boring mess. I'm sorry, what works in a book does not always work on film. Look at the Harry Potter movies. Look at Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. That book was overwrought, and there's way too much shit going on into it. And they cut that thing down into a lean monster, and that film is awesome. So, I just don't know. I don't know what they were expecting from it. But for me personally, I think Gatsby knocked it out of the park. I think all the actors, especially Carey Mulligan, she's somebody that's been on my radar for a while, but man, she captured something, and maybe it's because I'm attracted to Carey Mulligan in real life, but she just, something about her and Daisy, like when you looked into her eyes in that film, you really felt like, holy fuck, this woman could destroy my life, fantastic stuff. I recommend everybody to go out and see The Great Gatsby. Definitely read the book, because you will want to read the book, and you want to read it multiple times to get all the subtext into it. It's a great story, and you can read it for and it's so crazy because the movie kind of diminishes a little bit of it. But you can interpret it so many ways. You could look at I look at Gatsby as a romantic figure in a lot of ways. Tragically romantic, but still a romantic figure in that, he has a dream, and he has put his entire life into trying to achieve this dream. And for something about that, somebody who just does not give up and is successful in creating what he envisions for his life. There's a reason why he's the Great Gatsby, So, but yeah, a much more kinetic and vibrant adaptation, but also a much more sympathetic and romantic adaptation. You really, for a long time in the film, you really root for Gatsby and Daisy, and that's something that in the book I don't think you ever really get. I think in the book you feel like, holy shit, this guy's kind of crazy, and this girl's kind of vapid. But in this film, it really, it was my interpretation of Gatsby, which I always looked at him as just the hopeless romantic who fell in love with this girl and will do anything to get her back, and literally does everything to get her back. Anyway, kind of spoilerific. I'm going to make sure I put a comment or a thing on there that says spoilers, because I feel like a lot of people read Gatsby in high school and they just say, well, that was boring, and move on. And I really don't think it should be read by people that age. I think you need to put a couple years behind you and some tough decisions in your life behind you, and have your heart broken at least once before Gatsby really sings to you that way, as it does to me. But anyway, I implore you guys to go give it a shot. I mean, what else are you going to watch? I mean, Star Trek comes, Iron Man's out, Star Trek comes out, but other than that, I didn't really see anything else too great that's out there, so. But, God, I can't wait to get the Blu-ray. I can't wait to get the Blu-ray. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and end this here. So, yeah. Thank you guys so much for watching. Take care. I'll see you next time.